Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that the library is built on land that was part of the homelands of the Nagashtank and Anacostan, Piscataway Convoy, Pamunkey, and Manahoke people. Indigenous peoples, including members of these nations, still live and practice their teachings here in the DC area today. So, I am Biana Ine Ryan, a librarian in the African section of the library's African and Middle Eastern Division. And on behalf of the division, I am honored to welcome you to this evening's program, sponsored by a grant from the Lilly Foundation. This program is entitled The Rise and Expansion of Islam in Somalia and will be presented by Dr. Mohammed Haji Mukhtar from Savannah State University. For more than 60 years, the African section has served as the focal point for Africa-based research, collections, and services in the library. Within the division, it is one of three sections, including the Hebraic and Near East section. The section provides access to collections of unmatched depth and breadth, documenting languages and literatures, cultures, and history from around the world, extending from the southern tip of Africa to the Mediterranean coast, across the Middle East and Central Asia, and down to the Indian Ocean islands. The library holds rich collections in African languages such as Yoruba, Arabic, Amharic, Somali, Kiswahili, Malagasy, Zulu, as well as hundreds of others. The library has a long treasured history of preserving the stories of peoples from around the world, including Africa. We feel a special duty to acquire representative, selective collection items that foster discovery and connection. Today, the library's program today will highlight Africa's distinctive, religious and cultural diversity. My colleague, Abdullahi Ahmed, will now introduce our speaker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed, reference librarian in the African section of the African and Middle Eastern Division. Our lecturer today is Dr. Mohammed Haji Mukhtar, who is a well-known Somali scholar and writer who currently resides in the United States. He is a professor of African and Middle Eastern history at Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia, where he has been teaching since 1991. Previously, Dr. Mukhtar has taught at a number of institutions, including Academia Dhaqanka Soomaaliyeed, translated to the Somali Academy of Culture, where he conducted extensive field research on Somalia's historical sites and trade relations. He served as an associate professor of history at the Somali National University and later taught at National University of Malaysia. He has been a Fulbright High Scholar twice and held fellowships from Istituto Italiano per l'Africa, the Arabic League Education, Culture and Scientific Organization, and the National Endowment of Humanities. Dr. Mukhtar received his PhD from Al-Azhar University in Cairo, Egypt, and his research interests are the history of Islamic world, Northeast Africa, and Southern Arabia. He has written many books and articles, some of which are as follows. He has written many articles and books, but I just have few examples. The Rise and Expansion of Islam in the Middle East, its history and culture. And the second book, Islam in Somali History, Facts and Fiction. Historical Dictionary of Somalia. Language marginalization, ethnic nationalism, and cultural crisis in Somalia. And I have a long list, but I'll stop there. Now, without further ado, Dr. Mohammed Haji Mukhtar.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the African and Middle Eastern Division that gave me this opportunity to, in fact, chit-chat with you some of my latest research on that areas of my interest, which is Islam in Africa and Middle East. It's really an honor, and I'm very happy to doing that. Somalis, they have a saying. It goes like this. I'll try to translate literally, maybe. Somalis say, if a king is near, you watch your hands. Because the bodyguard of the king might think that you might be throwing something to the king, and then they will bother you. So you have to watch. Don't move your hands a lot if the king is near. If a saint is near, the Somalis say, you watch your soul. Because the saints have some supernatural power. They can detect the feelings that you have towards them. If it's an ill feeling, then they might bother you too. And if a learned man and woman are near, Somalis, they say, you have to watch your mouth. Because in this kind of circumstances, with all of these learned men and women, you might say certain things that they don't like, and then they will bother you with their questions and comments. So I'll be watching my mouth, but, but I don't mean I won't entertain questions and comments. Indeed, I love to entertain questions and comments. I learn always from my audience and also from my students. It is evident that Somalia had cultural and commercial relations with the Indian Ocean, maybe with the ancient civilizations. So here you can see that this is the Indian Ocean rim, and that's Somalia there in the eastern corner of the continent. And you see the kind of connection and communication that Somalis had with most of these what you call the Indian Ocean rim. Indian Ocean, in fact, has been historically, I think, if we believe in that the Horn of Africa is the origin of man, probably that was one of the reasons that this ocean has been always active, unlike the Atlantic or the Pacific, historically, a long time ago. It helps, I mean, the monsoon winds that you can see from these arrows, where you can have, you can sail to the east because the wind will help you for 4 months. If you're going from Mogadishu all the way, for instance, to Kwanju, yeah, you will arrive there within less than 4 months, and you have your products and sell, and then wait another 4 months. It brings you back to Africa. In fact, the Arabs call that al-riyah al-tijariya, the trade wind. You know, it's just very resourceful if you are a merchant. They had relations with Southeast Asia, as you can see, Southern Arabia, Persia, as far as Egypt, Cairo, and beyond. In fact, some scholarship shows that Somalis, they had also some contacts with the Mediterranean world, like the Greeks and Romans. We have some sources of that nature. Islam found its way to Somalia from the religious beginning, from the 1st century of Islam. According to some scholarship, in fact, Somalis, they claim that Islam came to Somalia even during the life of the Prophet. Amazing. Before it went to Medina, Islam, of course, the rise of Islam, the cradle of Islam is Mecca. So while Muslims were in Mecca, Somalis already adopted Islam. This is some claim. Somalia claims that its people are 100% Muslims. 100% Muslims. I don't think there's any other way in the world where anybody can claim that. Somalis, they say they are all Sunni Muslims. In Sunni Islam, as we all know, we have so many denominations. We have Maliki, Hanafi, Hanbali. We're none of this. Somalis are Shafi'i school of thought. That's just one school of thought. So, from this perspective, again, one might expect that people who have all of this uniformity, they have a chance, better chances to building a unified nation, harmonious nation, more than the other African nations or Middle Eastern nations that suffer from diversities and differences in religion and sometimes in sectarianism. Somalis don't have those things. In fact, Somalis also claim that they are from one stock. They're all from the same origin, same history, same culture. So in that regard, again, you expect, well, this is ideal nation building. I mean, who can have all of these kinds of goodness? However, the reality on the ground from post-independent Somalia, we will see that Somalis, this reality, the way I paint it right now, in fact, everybody will expect that Somalis should have that unity and that harmony. But the reality poses this question that, a very intriguing question. Somalis failed that unity. Somalis are divided, really. In fact, the 21st century Somalia was the first nation who the political scientists are calling failed state. Until today, they're still struggling. And they're so divided, so many components, so many presidents, so many regions, so many blah, blah, blah. So the expectation that people had, I have colleagues of mine who are Africans, who are Middle Easterners, they will wonder, Dr. Mukhtar, what happened? What we read and what we see is so different. So that is one grim reality that we have maybe no good answer. People are wondering how you can explain people of that nature can commit crimes against humanity, killing each other, demising. Where in Islam, you wonder, you question, where in Islam murder, qatl, that is the highest crime in Islam. Where in Islam, rape? Why a Somali rapes his sister, who is Muslim? Where in Islam that people sanction food, water? I'm sure you follow the news in the early 90s. People were dying from starvation. Some people were just keeping those food from them. Where in Islam all of those things? Of course, these questions, of course, are not the concern of us tonight. These are more, we leave this for the political scientists. I will rather stick to the topic of tonight's presentation about Islam, how it came and how it was spread in the region. I will stick to that point. Conventionally, ladies and gentlemen, Islam spreads in three ways, three scenarios. One is called Fath, conquest. Muslims conquer places. That's one scenario. The second scenario is called Hijrah, which is migration. Could be voluntary and also forced migration. But that's one also means, or one scenario that Islam really spreads. And the third one is called Tijara, which is trade. and commerce. So let's see where Somalia fits into these things. Let's try the conquest, Fatah. Of course, we need to ask ourselves, when Muslims were conquering, why they needed to conquer? What were the reason behind Islamic conquests? And then we find there were two driving forces for Muslims to go out Arabia to from Medina and conquer places. One is they were looking for political stability. Medina, where Muhammad is, it was surrounded by enemy territories. I mean, in the east, we have got the Sassanids, the Persians, powerful empire who denied to become Muslims because Muhammad tried to communicate with them. They showed no interest and they're going to be fighting. You go to the north, the Byzantium, Eastern Roman Empire are there. Northwest, also the Romans in Egypt, in North Africa. Plus, there was some other client Arab enclaves that were also enemy of Medina, like the Ghassanids, who were clients of the Byzantium, the Lakhmids, who were clients to the Persians. So therefore, Medina is surrounded by enemy empires, powerful empires. Second thing that Muslims were looking for, in addition to finding some political stability, they were looking for the betterment of their economy, to make some resources. So these are the two driving forces, how to have a political stability and also how to better their economic well-being. Again, then we need to ask ourselves, was Somalia posing a threat to Medina so that Arabs invade like they did with Persia and the Byzantium? Was Somalia offering some economic potential to be exploited? To me, I found that is no. I mean, Somalia neither posing any threat to Medina, far away from them. They had no capacity, no military capacity, or anything that they invade Medina. That was not there. Nor Somalia really offers economic resources, the one that is in Iraq, Sham, Persia, Egypt. No such a thing was there too. So therefore, we are safe. I mean, with this scenario, Somalia is not fitting. Somalia was not Islamized by Fatah, for me. Let's see the second scenario, which is hijrah, voluntary or forced migration. From 632 CE to 750 CE, this is a period of 100 plus years, Muslims in Arabia, they were suffering from some painful civil unrest. Immediately after the death of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the first caliph, Abu Bakr, faced Muslims who said, we are not paying the taxes, okay? Because taxation, zakat, is one of the pillars of Islam, okay? Some Arabs in Hadramaut, in southern Arabia, they were already fed up of maybe Islam. They were just scared from Muhammad. So if he's gone now, I'm not just paying anything. So Abu Bakr, he said, no, I cannot accept that. He raised army and expedition to be sent to southern Arabia to settle, to subjugate those people. Many of those who are denying to paying zakat, this war is called the Ridda War, the apostasy war. Of course, many of them were killed, and some of them, of course, run away to all over wherever they can ago, probably some of this, I suspect, maybe came to Somalia or to this region. Because if I can point what I did. From southern Hormuz, Siraf, Basra, these people are coming here, and some of them probably are touching down Mogadishu area and south. Those who are running away from the apostasies. Although the period of the caliphate in Islam is one of the very, very brilliant period of Islamic history, but historically, if you look at this period, the 4 caliphs, this was one of the most probably problematic period also of Islamic history. Why I say that? Out of the 4, 3 of them were assassinated. The second caliph, Umar, was assassinated. Third caliph, Osman, was assassinated by Muslims. At least Umar was, they said it was not a Muslim who killed him. And Ali, the 4th, also was assassinated by Muslims. Out of these assassinations and civil unrest, there were movements, there were groups that were emerging. The supporters of Osman, the supporters of Ali and those people. The people who we call them the Shiites, Ali's supporters. Ali was really murdered. His child, his son, Hussein, was murdered. He was mutilated, in fact, in a bad way. The grandson of the Prophet Muhammad was mutilated by the Umayyads. His kids were also massacred. So here we have people who are again running away. The whole period of Umayyad dynasty until 750, because the Umayyads, they are after the Shiites. So again, I suspect some of them are also running away from there, coming to East Africa, probably beginning from Somalia. So, although we said we are all Sunnis, Somalis, although we said all Sunnis, I mean, I found some very intriguing elements of Shiism within Somali life. It's very subtle. We don't know what we're doing. Although we're saying 100% we're Sunnis, Shafi'is, but you will see some elements of Shiism down there in Somali way of life. For instance, we Somalis, we honor and respect Prophet Muhammad's household. We venerate them, the Hashemites. To some extent that Somali tribes, many of Somali tribes, they are telling us they are descendants of the Qurayshi section of the Hashemites. That's how they love the household of the Prophet Muhammad. They give special honor to the 4th caliph, Ali. Ali is very, very venerated. In Islam, in Somali mosques, the Friday sermons, when the Imam is praising in his sermon, at the end of the sermon, he prays starts from the Prophet. The Prophet, peace upon him, then the congregant, they say, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, may peace be upon him. What about his household, radiyallahu anhum, his wives, radiyallahu anhum, his companions, radiyallahu anhum. He goes on and on. Abu Bakr Siddiq, radiyallahu anhu, Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiyallahu anhu. When he comes, Usman ibn Affan, radiyallahu anhu, when he comes to Ali, in fact, the Imam himself, he raises his voice. He says quite a number of attributes to Ali and says, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then we say, Karamallahu wajah. May Allah glorify his face. Why we have to really give that extra credit to Ali is, I suspect, there's some Shi'i factor down there. Southern Somali women, particularly, Somali women, they venerate the daughter of the Prophet, Fatima. Fatima, she is well honored and respected. In fact, Southern women, when they have baby shower, they have to sing for her. I don't know how many Somalis are here. Abbai Sitide. Anybody heard about that? Oh, ladies of Fatima. They praise her, they sing for her, they venerate her, they honor her. But to some extent, some of them, they in fact associate with prophethood. They say, okay, Muhammad, he is the prophet of male, but she is the prophet of female. So Abbai Nabiye, you know, she's the prophet of female. So these are subtle things in Somalia that is elements of Shiism. The Ashrafis, that's another group. The Sharifis or the Sada, who claim they are the descendant of Ali's offspring, Hussein and so forth. They are well respected. There are many of them in Somalia. Of course, Sada, they are all over Islamic world, so we have also many of them down there. So indeed, when we talk about migration, that scenario, yeah, there is a potential that many Arabs, Persians, Indians, who are running away from the Umayyad dynasty may land it into Somalia. Of course, then, of course, they are going to be followed by some other people eventually. Islam, when we talk about migration, Islam, in fact, commends migration. Migration is one of the best to spread Islam. In Surah number 16, verses 41, it says, وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا فِي اللَّهِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا ظُلِمُوا لَنُبَوِّئَنَّهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَلَأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. Literally translated, those of you who migrate for the sake of God, you're migrating not just for making money, you migrate for the sake of God. Those who do that, Allah rewards them in this life, a better house, better place to stay. And of course, the life after is even, there are more rewards after that. So there are so many verses in the Quran. أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا. Was not the earth spacious enough for you to migrate? It encourages you go. Not only that you're saving your life and the life of your family, but also you're saving your religion for the sake of God. So commendation, there are a lot. Prophet, peace upon him, himself, his early companions, when they were in Mecca, they were persecuted, they were suffering. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he commended them, hey, you guys rather migrate, leave Mecca, okay? You leave Mecca and go to a place in the Horn of Africa, Aksum, in today's Abyssinia, okay? Islam is still in Mecca. Indeed, they went. Among the first wave of these immigrants, in fact, there was the daughter of the Prophet, her husband, his uncle Ja'far. There were many notable, eventually, companions of the Prophet who were there. So when they went there, in fact, yeah, it helped them. They survived. When Mecca was conquered, then they came back to Mecca. Himself, Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, he modeled. He migrated from Mecca to Medina because Mecca was so unwelcoming. So he took his companions and he established another city in Yathrib in Medina. So therefore, migration is something that Islam commends, Allah commends, Prophet commends, and one of the means that it could go to all over. Islam came by migration through to here, to America, to Canada, to all over. It's not by any other means but to migration means. So I expect that there are many probably Arabs, Persians, Indians who came to Somalia by that scenario. Let's see the scenario number 3, which is Tijara. trade, and commerce. Medieval scholars, Arabs and non-Arabs, they all indicate that, yes, if we go to, yeah, there was trade. Very powerful trade between, again, the Indian Ocean and as far as Mediterranean. The trade was so powerful. Mainly in the coastal cities starting from coastal cities of Somalia, from Mogadishu all the way deep south. I mean, the dots you can see here in Somalia, the first dot begins from Mogadishu. Then you have got Malindi, Mombasa, on and on. Between Malindi and Mogadishu, there was Marka, Barawa. There are some what we call city-states of Banadir. The Muslims who were trading, who were migrating, they were all coming to that region of East Africa. So therefore, Islam probably arrived that region. Yeah, that is there's a town in northern Somalia which is called Zayla. Zayla was another place where Muslims probably landed, not in significant number. So Islam comes then to me through the two last scenarios, through Tijara and through Hijrah. Then there's a question, the final question that we need to talk about, or I need to talk with you about, is how in Islam, for instance, yeah, I wanted to. This is the map shows about the conquests that I was talking about. You know, all the way Persian Empire, all the way to Spain. Yeah, the Muslims they conquered all of these territories, but there's nothing down to Somalia at all. And however, Muslim writers and Arab writers, as well as Somali writers, there is this perception that Islam, because of its Somalia, because of its geographic proximity with Arabia, it's coming from Arabia to northern Somalia. That's what they think. I found out that quite intriguing. I didn't buy into that one. Why? I have four scenarios or four things that Islam was not appealing to that. North of Mogadishu, Islam was not appealing at all for four reasons. Number one, this region's proximity to the State of Islam. Okay, it's very close to Mecca, Medina, and in fact, they are learning from this what happened when people migrated from Mecca to Medina. Meccans, they sent expeditions after them to bring them back. If the king of Abyssinia was not resourceful, in fact, they were taken back to Mecca and they were persecuted. So that's in the mind of any Muslim to migrate. I don't want to be followed up and then sent back to Medina. So that is one reason why northern south migration was not, was not possible. Second scenario is from Mogadishu to north, or there's a river called Shabelle. From Shabelle to north, there are no really significant economic resources. You remember I told you that Islam was expanding because they need something. They need resources. These regions, they lack viable economic resources. It's predominantly populated by nomadic pastoral Somalis who raise goats, sheep, maybe camel. That is the major economic resources. Probably the Arabs or the migrants, they were interested in more than that. So therefore, they couldn't find, that region is not providing those economic resources. So therefore, that's one reason I say, Islam cannot be like that. Third, there were few urban centers in that region. The northern region of Somalia, there were few urban centers. And Islam is really by nature is urban, because how you want to proselytize, you want to teach, you want to do so, but the region, the people who are there, they are not even settled, they are moving, they are mobile, nomads, pastorals, going back, forth. So it is not attracting, there's no a place, a city or a village that you settle. So in that regard, I kind of saying Islam cannot be coming from there. There's another reason. Another reason, this region lacks natural harbors. No harbors, no port facilities. There were frequent cyclones, hurricanes, tornadoes. Until today, the Indian Ocean, Red Sea meeting, Gulf of Aden, that region is very dangerous for ships. Okay, there were so many shipwrecks in history from the pharaonic time. There are stories about shipwreck sailors. And an Arab sailor sailed from Arabia in this region. He found out, he was on a boat with Somalis or with Arabs. He said when we were at the Cape Guardafui, which is the tip of Somalia, it was so horrendous, so cyclonic. So he said those who were on the boat, they were singing to just pass time because it's so bad. So they were saying, Berbera wa hafuni wa mawjikal majnuni, Berbera wa mawjuha kama tara. Berbera and Hafun, mad are your waves. Hafun and Berbera, see their waves, how bad they are. So it's very tough area. So the migrants, they were avoiding, they were coming maybe a little right and then go straight to southern Banadir areas and south. In fact, the Swahili world explains that. The Swahili world is where really most of these migrants, most of these traders ended up. You know, from Banadir to Kenya, to Tanzania, to Mozambique, all the way to Kilwa and Sofala. You don't see that north of Mogadishu, places that are Swahili. There's no settlements down here. So in that regard, this is my third reason that I am kind of disagreeing with this scholarship that says Islam came from the north. My final point that I disagree with is immigrants and traders were not attracted to that region for lack of the environment. The environment is so harsh. No rainfall. Rainfall is very limited. It's very hot. Famine, drought. So if you are coming from Arabia, which is the same or even worse, a desert, you not end up into a similar place. You need to look for something else. So that's why they were going to the south. So because of that harsh environment, yeah, they didn't stop that there. So therefore, to sum for you guys, what's going on in Somalia is, Somalia's history and culture has been looked through the eyes of post-colonial or post-independent historiography. Post-colonial, post-independent historiography, Somalis, they focused on their pastoral nomadic society. They glorified, in fact, yeah, nomads and pastorals, they are the best. history is their history, culture is their culture, language is their language. The way of life of Somalis is the pastoral nomadic life, which is really antithesis to history. Because if you're looking for history, you need settlement. You need a place where some people are settled, not for people are moving, always moving from place to place. So that is one of the reasons why really Somali history is so unclear. Somali historians, they marginalize, they look down to sedentary Somalis from Mogadishu south and the interior. This region is full of settlements, centers, cities. We don't know much about this. Even Mogadishu, Merka, Barawa, the coastal cities, their history, we don't know much about it. So that marginalization of where the history could be, that is one of the reasons I suspect that Somalis, post-independence Somalis focus on nomadic pastoral history. Really, we are paying off dearly right now. We also saw the sources of history. I mean, Library of Congress, you guys have a lot of sources here. If you look your collection, what is written about Somalia by Somalis or by non-Somalis during the post-independence, the sources are very English. Everybody's quoting English scholar, English writer, English this and that. There are so many, many other sources that, again, we ignored. Arabic sources is one of the top. If we are talking about migration, these are Arabs, okay? What they wrote, what they said, what they did, we don't know much about it. Colonial Italians. Southern history is all about Italians. So nobody's using Italian sources. Nobody's using the neighboring sources, Ethiopian, Ge'ez. Nobody's using about the Portuguese, the Germans. These are all roaming around, that French, Chinese, Indians. You know, we limited ourselves in the sources of our history, only the English sources. That's not helping us. Oral sources. We collected oral sources from these nomadic societies. A lot. Their songs, their poems, their whatever they do is there. But we have no oral collections of the South. Very limited. There are some, but they are limited. So, ladies and gentlemen, until Somalia's history is studied comprehensively, Somalia will remain the least understood in the Middle Eastern and the African context. A reappraisal is really clearly in order. Thank you very much. Comments I like, not
All
questions.
The floor is now open to questions or comments from anybody.
Can you tell us on the map where Somalia is?
Where Somalia is. You see Mogadishu here, let me see the other map. Yeah. Somalia this is Aden on Red Sea, this line from here all the way to somewhere here. This region is Somalia.
It's a large area.
It's a large area. Mogadishu is the capital. That's what it's shown here.
Oh. Question or comment?
Is the majority of Muslims in Somalia? Majority of Muslims in Somalia? Or?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Somalis are, in fact, predominantly kind of Islamic, but as I said, they claim they are 100 Muslims. There's no other religion. There's no other religion down there. Somalia is, the way they claim, is predominantly Islamic.
Two questions. What was being traded between Somalia and other, or the larger Muslim world, let's say, and also question about what kind of Muslims. You already said that it were Arabs, but which specific Muslims brought Islam to Somalia? Because I'm asking, in the later period, for instance, it were like Sufis who brought Islam to the Balkans, for instance. So I'm curious to know what kind of Muslims brought Islam to Somalia specifically.
The first part is about trade, right? Yeah, the trade, in fact, the trade between Somalia and the outside world, it was mutual, you know. Asians, Arabians, Persians were bringing some of their commodities to Somalia, they sell. Could be textile, glass, metalware, and something like that. And then they buy from Somalia grain. Tell me, there's some very exotic hides, skin of animals like giraffes, like leopards, tortoise shell. There are ostrich feather. Somalia has all kind of economic resources, particularly when you're in that southern region of Somalia. Ostrich feather. In fact, Chinese, they were interested, for instance, maybe in ivory tusks and stuff like that. So the exchange was really good. I mean, you can find some scholars, they will tell us they found, for instance, in India, in Ceylon, in Calcutta, some Somali stuff. One thing that Somalia, that region that I said is less economic resources, they have frankincense and myrrh, aromatic things. Egyptians loved, you know, the frankincense of Somalia. In fact, if you look at the biblical stories, where when Christ was born, this region sent present on camel's back, you remember? Myrrh and frankincense was coming from here. So these are the kind of commodities that they were exchanging here and there by using the monsoon winds down there. Yeah, those those who introduced to Islam, like I said, for instance, maybe Shi'i Islam. We, like I said, we might not say we are Shi'i or we have Shiites, but there's some Shi'i element down there. Then we have the Sunni Muslims. The Sunnites also came down there, particularly the Shafi'i sect came to Somalia. And indeed, yes, the point that you are mentioning, the Sufi orders, yes. The Sufi orders, there are 2, 3 maybe Sufi orders that are very powerful in the spread of Islam in Somalia. The Qadiriyya, which goes back to Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, al-Baghdadi. And then we have another Sufi order which is called Ahmadiyya, which is by Ahmed ibn Idris al-Fasi, the Moroccan, who died in Mecca. We have Shadiliyya. Yeah, really, yeah, they played a significant role, the Sufis and their role. Although it was a little late, it was from late 18th century, 19th century, very powerful. In fact, they were also anti-colonial forces, the Sufi orders, anti-colonial forces. So yes, indeed, the Sufi orders played good role in spreading Somalia, but my topic was just limiting on how and when. But thank you very much for that comment. Yes, down here.
I just have two quick questions.
Okay.
If there's any indication that there was a religion prior to Islam being brought to Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, which goes off topic, but I think you're a learned man, in your opinion, if Islam has been in the country for 20 centuries and everything else is culturally unified,
Mm-hmm.
why is Somalia still in the state it's in?
Cool, very good. Yeah, the first point, that's quite true. We need to think of what was going on in Somalia before Islam. What kind of, what things that they were worshiping, you know? Of course, before Islam, Somalia is very neighbor to a kingdom that is Christian. Ethiopia. Ethiopian Christianity goes long time ago. Okay, long time ago. In fact, if you remember, when Portuguese were exploring this region, they were haphazardly, they were not aware where this, they were looking at something called the Kingdom of Prester John. What's Prester John? Where is that? Portuguese, they heard about a Christian king somewhere in Africa or in India, they don't know. In fact, the way that guy they were looking for, he was in Ethiopia, not far from Somalia, next door. And again, what's your name, by the way?
Chandra.
Chandra, those days, for instance, there was no geographic delimitation to say this is Somalia, this is Ethiopia, this is Eritrea, this is Djibouti, that didn't exist. The region was wide open. However, yeah, there's a spot, the one I showed you, and tell me, yeah, this one, Aksum. This guy who helped the migrants, he was Christian, okay? He was Christian, and he refused to give the Meccans these people back. So unless Somalis say maybe we were Abyssinians or there is no specific religion that they were worshiping. Traditionally or conventionally, they were practicing certain, like every other communities in the world, in their pre-religious traditions, even pre-Christian tradition. There's always something to worship, okay? For instance, in Somalia today, there are something called Zar, you know, a dance. They are dancing for, could be a god, you know, who is helping, particularly with women who have some maybe ailments, and when they play that Zar, and they call that Zar god, which is called Waq. Somalis probably, they heard about that name. Waq is God. Because in Islam, God is Allah, right? But they were calling for Waq. There are places in Somalia today with Waq, Waq Shan, tell me, all kinds of Waqs, El Waq. So that pre-Islamic God existed. It is oral tradition until today. It's not really well covered, but that was there. We have also some other some other dances like Mingis. Again, poor women. You know, always women were marginalized. So whenever they're in trouble, they end up into some spiritual things. You know, they need spiritual healing. So this Ming is also a dance where they burn, you know, incense and stuff like that. This lady who is impacted with this jinn or whatever, go into trance, and eventually she will be healed. There is something called the Borane, also in some trance. People go in trance. So I think you're looking at those issues, pre-Islamic Somalia, there was something that they were worshiping, but really it's not well explored and well researched. So that is what I can think of. Yeah, the other part, I think, as I said, answering why Somalis are in this mess, probably in my concluding remarks, I said that until Somalia's history really looked comprehensively, you know, because we Somalis, we don't know our history, really, because our history is based on these nomadic, unsettled societies, all right? But if we revisit Somalia's history, Somalia's culture, Somalia's way of life, Somalia's languages, in history we believe there's something called revisionism, right? Always what one time was right could be wrong today. What was wrong one time could be right today. So I think we need, that's why I'm saying reappraisal is due. We have to revisit Somalia's history and look it deeply into how really we can understand. Because as I said, our African nations, our Middle Eastern nations, they're so confused on us because they say we suffer from tribalism or from sectarianism, from all of this Sunni, whatever, but we still exist. Our neighbors, Kenya, how many tribes are there? Ethiopia. But when we said, no, we're not like you guys, we're better than you guys, but we failed. So that failure, I think, we have to look and revisit our history, and we can correct things. It's very hard sometimes, certain lies to be corrected is tough, because some people who lived throughout their whole history in that lie, to be corrected, it might be some difficult today. But I think that could be one way that we can answer that question. Yes?
Thank you. The question that I have is, you mentioned that most of the text have not been converted to, or it's not even available. It's in other languages like Italian or Arabic. With the advent of AI, is it possible to get those books automatically? Maybe this is a question for Library of Congress. Automatically converted to English, or have you looked at those texts, maybe trying to translate it into English or something like that? Thank you.
Abdullah can help me with that because he's the one from the Library of Congress. And, but I think, we shouldn't ignore any possibilities, any chances, anything that we can do, because Somalis claim, I mean, they don't read even today. I want to share with you, this is my late publication on Somali history, just published 2-3 months ago. Its title is, it's on historiography, methodology of how to research, how to write. Because, anybody who takes a pen and have papers, writes something, that person cannot be a historian. History is a discipline. It needs certain patterns, certain rules governing how to do that, how to classify whatever you are experiencing, whether it is written sources or oral sources. I wrote, as Abdullahi mentioned earlier, I wrote most of my publications in non-Somali languages. Okay, I wrote in Arabic, I wrote in English, few in Italian. Some Somalis are telling me, well, we don't read English, we don't. So now I have for them a challenge, really. This is in their language, okay? And anybody, maybe to translate this volume also into English, I have the PDF, so if the AI can help to automatically translate into English, I think that would be very interesting, and I will go for it. So I know this young man. I know he is an engineer, and in fact, he has publications on how to teach with technology. So maybe you can help us, Mohammed, and use. I don't use AI for my courses right now because I'm very old-fashioned. I just stick to my gun, how it was before.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for coming. Good night. Thank you.